What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and it's time for my 5 takeaways from Week 9 of the 2022 college football season. Had some big games this weekend. Have some massive games coming up, especially in the SEC this next weekend, as we are about to roll into the month of November. Yes, the season is flying by like it always does. Let's start with my first takeaway. Tennessee might be the best team in the country right now. I mean, legitimately, they might be the best team in the country. You look at the offense, we know what they can do on that side of the ball, and they gave up a lot of points to Alabama, but look at what the defense did against LSU, what the defense did against Kentucky, holding them to just 6 points, forcing turnovers. If this team can start playing defense like they have in those two games, I don't know if anyone can beat Tennessee, and that includes Georgia. Again, you go back to Alabama, they really struggled on the defensive side in that game, but LSU has proven they've got a good offense. Look at what they did against Florida. Look at what they did to Ole Miss. Kentucky, maybe not the most explosive offense in the country this year, but holding them to 6 points, I was just really impressed with this Tennessee defense in this game. The offense had to settle for some field goals. Really, the offense played really well in this game, but if you don't settle for some field goals, I mean, think about how many points they could have scored in this game. I don't understand how Jalen Hyatt keeps getting so wide open. I mean, he's like maybe a Heisman candidate right now, and teams are just leaving him wide open for touchdowns. It's not. I think he had 2 of those in this game, and now you bring back Cedric Tillman back from injury. I mean, how do you stop this passing attack? They can run the football. Going back to the defensive side of the ball, they can stop the run. They can get pressure on the quarterback. Pass defense, again, maybe a concern, but this team just looks like they might be the best team right now. And I don't think the Alabama win was a fluke. Again, now we've got the LSU win. We've got the Kentucky win. This team is rolling, and a team that I think has a legitimate chance to beat Georgia coming up on Saturday. Let's go to my number 2 takeaway. Ohio State, I think they can win it all this year if the defense continues to make plays. And that's what we have seen from them really the last couple of games. Forcing turnovers. And if they can do that on the defensive side of the ball with the offense that they have, there's no reason to think that this team cannot win a national championship. Now, I still have some concerns about Ohio State, because what happens if they don't force the turnovers? What if they didn't force any turnovers against Penn State in this game? Do they win this game? I don't know. I mean, it probably comes down to the wire. Also, again, settling for some field goals. It's almost like the offense plays better when they have a longer field, because they have a chance to make some big plays. Really, I just don't see them built to score in the red zone a lot of times, and against a good defense, that could catch up to them. So I had some positive takeaways and some negative takeaways from this game from Ohio State, and really the last couple of weeks. But if it all clicks, if the defense can force the turnovers, because I think they've proven they've got a much better defense this year. I know the offense at times, again, has kind of bogged down in the red zone, but they've still got a really, really good offense. And I think between Ohio State and Tennessee, you're probably talking about the 2 best offenses in the country. So if the defense can continue to make plays, I think that they can beat Georgia. They can beat Alabama. They can beat Tennessee, Clemson, whoever they wind up playing. But can they do that in the big games? That's going to be the big question. If they can get by Michigan, if they can get to the playoff, if they can do those things, make the big plays on defense, then they can win it all this year. And I think the Penn State game definitely showed that it's a possibility for them, but at the same time, again, showed some areas of concern. Maybe if they don't force the turnovers, like I said, if they can't score touchdowns in the red zone, how is that going to play out if they play in a big game against Georgia or Alabama in the playoff? We'll find out, but I think the potential is there. Ohio State, definitely a top 5 team right now, and they proved that against Penn State. Even though some people are going to say, well, look at the score. Michigan beat them a lot easier. Michigan's clearly better than Ohio State. You can't just go by that. For one thing, this game was on the road. And then if you want to do that, just look at the Michigan State game. Ohio State beat Michigan State easier than Michigan beat Michigan State. So, I think we learned a lot about Ohio State in this game. They are for real, but maybe still some concerns. I don't think they're a perfect team. And I don't know if anyone really is at this point, but this is a team that is going to be very dangerous, I think, the rest of the season. Let's go to number 3. North Carolina is in the driver's seat in the Coastal Division. I mean, they've got like a 3-game lead now. They've got the tiebreakers on pretty much everyone. How about the collapse by Pitt, though? Pitt was up in this game. Looked like they were probably going to win it. North Carolina just took off late in this one. Wound up blowing them out. Just a crazy finish to this game. And for all the talk about Miami and Pittsburgh, it is North Carolina, again, the team that is in the driver's seat in the Coastal Division. I don't see any way they don't win this division. And the way that offense can play, who knows? They could even challenge Clemson in the ACC championship. So this is a good football team. Defense is playing better. Early in the year, they were pretty awful on that side of the ball. But they're starting to play better on defense. The offense has been great all year. And again, it's North Carolina. Go ahead and write it down. North Carolina is going to win the Coastal Division. They may have already clinched it. I don't think they have, because I think they still have 4 games left. So they haven't clinched it yet. But they're going to win this division. And it's going to be Clemson versus North Carolina in the ACC championship. Number 4, Clemson's resume. Speaking of Clemson's resume took a major hit this weekend. So you see Wake Forest go down to Louisville. They got blown out. That's going to knock them way down in the rankings, maybe even out of the top 25 in the college football playoff rankings. We'll see how that plays out on Tuesday. And then we saw Syracuse get blown out by Notre Dame. So you're talking about 2 of Clemson's best wins and 2 teams that, again, may not even be ranked in the playoff rankings coming up in the first rankings on Tuesday. NC State is still probably going to be there. They've lost their starting quarterback, so they might lose a couple more games. And at the end of the day, if Clemson loses to Notre Dame, or probably not, but maybe Miami or North Carolina, I don't think this Clemson team is going to be able to afford a loss. I think if they lose a game, they're not going to make the college football playoff. They really needed Wake Forest to finish in the top 15, for Syracuse to finish in the top 25, NC State to be there. They need Notre Dame to finish strong. But if they beat Notre Dame, then that's going to give Notre Dame a 4th loss. So there's a lot of things going on there for Clemson. And their resume, again, it may not be very good at the end of the year. And I think it took a big hit on Saturday. So that's just something to watch. Really, Notre Dame played great against Syracuse. Wake Forest struggled big time against Louisville. That Louisville defense, they got after it, made some big plays. The offense played big. I think it was the 3rd quarter where they scored all those points. That was a very impressive win for Louisville. So at the same time, you might could say, well, assuming Clemson beats Louisville, then maybe that is going to help their resume, because Louisville's better. But they've already got 3 losses, and if Clemson beats them, just like with Notre Dame, they're going to have 4 losses. And if they lose another game, they're going to have 5 losses. So, yeah, Clemson's resume definitely took a hit on Saturday. And my number 5 takeaway, anything can happen this season, and I think we saw that on Saturday. So there were 2 games that just shocked me, not by the outcome as far as who won the game, but the way the game played out. And I've already talked about Wake Forest and Louisville. There's no way I would have said that Louisville would blow out Wake Forest. Would I have believed you if you said Louisville would beat Wake Forest? Sure, I thought there was a possibility. They're playing at home. They're not a horrible team. They had a chance to pull off that upset. But Kansas State and what they did to Oklahoma State, I have no explanation for it. Coming into this year, I talked about Oklahoma State's secondary and how it was going to be a major weakness for them. Well, Kansas State definitely exploited that in this game with a backup quarterback. Imagine if Adrian Martinez had played, and imagine if he had played against TCU. Kansas State probably wins that game, and they're probably sitting there with 1 loss to Tulane, by the way. So Kansas State would actually be the team in the driver's seat in the Big 12. But again, I have no explanation for how this game was not at least somewhat close. They completely dominated. I mean, defense, offense, everything was working for Kansas State. And I have no words for it. I have no explanation, no idea how that happened. You look at Missouri beating South Carolina. Right when South Carolina was starting to get some momentum, thought that was a team that could maybe start to creep up in the top 25, then they lose to Missouri, which Missouri has proven, they're a weird team. They have proven at times they can be a good team. And I tell you what, turnovers are such a big story this year if you look at some of these games. Look at the games where Georgia struggled, by the way. And you look at the Florida game. When this game got close, why did it get close? Because of turnovers. Why was Kent State? Why was Missouri somewhat close? And everyone likes to talk about that Kent State game. Kent State almost beat Georgia. Look, Georgia beat them by 3 possessions. The game was not close. I know Georgia didn't look great in that game, but it was turnovers. They had multiple turnovers in that game, multiple turnovers against Missouri. Those are things that can just make these games completely change around. Ohio State, Penn State, without the turnovers, that game probably comes down to the wire. Penn State might pull off the upset. Turnovers are such a big deal in college football, and because of that, anything can happen, and we could see that the rest of the year. We could see some big upsets. We could see some crazy things happen as we get into the month of November. You look at how things stand right now, and everyone, including me, I mean, we're all predicting 6, 7 teams with 1 loss, 3 teams maybe undefeated, all these things. You know, that's not how it usually goes. We don't normally have 5, 6, 7 teams undefeated or with 1 loss. In fact, there's usually a 2-loss team that can make a great argument to get into the college football playoff. I think that we think that it's going to go a certain way the rest of the year, but I think it's about to get turned upside down. I think we're going to see upsets. Tennessee might just beat Georgia. LSU might just beat Alabama. Ohio State might lose to Maryland. Michigan might beat Ohio State. Or maybe Ohio State gets upset to Maryland and then they turn around and beat Michigan. I mean, we're going to see some crazy things. Michigan could lose to Illinois. I mean, you can go down the list. Clemson, Notre Dame, that's not going to be an easy win for Clemson. I know Notre Dame has struggled. That could be an upset. I mean, TCU, they're probably going to lose a couple of games. I mean, it's just how it usually plays out. And don't be surprised at all if things really get flipped upside down these last few weeks. And I think just these few games this past weekend have shown that anything can happen. Kansas State completely blowing out Oklahoma State. There's no explanation for that. Notre Dame beating Syracuse when Syracuse was rolling. Notre Dame was struggling. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened that definitely maybe were showing what could happen the rest of the season. And I believe we're going to see some chaos. I believe we're going to see some upsets. I think everyone's, including me, has this prediction of how the rest of the season is going to go. And I think we're all going to be wrong. I think we're going to see some surprises. And I can't wait to see what those surprises are. So those are my takeaways. Again, give me your thoughts on Week 9 down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.